final levels, except not actually the final levels because you have the secret 5 relic levels underneath that the game really doesn't tell you about.
So
No, I think it's pretty obvious, but do you want to go after it now is more of a thing.
I'll be getting it. Well, I fight the final boss normally off screen, and then we'll end with the revamp, quote unquote, Cortex fight once I have
Ending,
everything.
yeah, okay.
of all the dark levels in the series, this is probably the most inoffensive because there's not much darkness in it.
No, it's not Night Fight, I think. Is that what that was?
There's like
Crash
there are
Team.
like a few specific sections that are dark rather than the whole level being built
Yeah.
around that.
And it's no fumbling in the dark.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because it's technically a repeat of the Egyptian theme, but it's a repeat with a completely different outdoors aesthetic.
Don't.
Yeah. The only time in the game they do it.
Which is interesting because it's technically the last level in the game. I mean, you can play it first out of these 5 if you want, but it's technically the last level. It continues.
Yeah, I don't get why they let you choose between the 5 levels when you're going to number them. It's like, well, if you're going to number them, I'm going to do them in that order anyway, unless you get into a Crash 2 situation where I could get a colored gem earlier as a result.
Yeah, it's kind of a recommended order, really, but you know,
They're more
no
like
harm, no
guidelines.
foul. But the last level, quote unquote, follows the Crash 2 tradition of having the 5 colored gems path,
Yes.
which was something that ended with this game, unfortunately. Wrath of Cortex doesn't have it, I think.
Rather, Cortex is missing a lot of things, like good level design.
Well, actually, not necessarily. Wrath of Cortex has some great levels in it. It just has some really bland levels, too.
Or uninspired.
Yeah.
But hey, Mark
like,
Hamill's in the game.
When oh yeah, he is. but when Wrath of Cortex is good, it's really good. It's just not good all the time. Is the
And if I
problem.
recall for the Wrath of Cortex development, I remember Hamill saying he didn't agree with some of the choices they had for Crash, which fans would later take out of context and say that Hamill hates Wrath of Cortex.
You see, I didn't get that joke at first. I was gonna say, wait, did Hamill actually say that? Is he a Crash?
Eh,
So you got some
Ooh.
serious air there.
also, somehow avoided getting crushed there by the door.
Actually, no. The thing about what Mark Hamill said is that he actually earlier on he voiced some. He admitted to having some creative difficulties. What he didn't expect was for people to then not like the movie and try to use his words to justify it. So,
Well, because they figured if it helps their argument in any sense, they'll gladly take whatever.
The
he
opinion
says.
he professes to, now that he's had to answer that, is that he had issues before he watched the completed movie. And I think what I've also heard along the way is that during the production of the movie, he talked to Ryan Johnson about what he thought, and I think some things were altered somewhat in response, as the back and forth happens, creative processes, that's kind of just a thing that happens. You don't need Mark Hamill to agree with you to not like the movie, though. Just saying. It's fine not to like it.
I think what Lewis is trying to say is that Last Jedi sucks.
Watch our
I think I
discussion
read
on
that
it.
out right. I don't need context for what Lewis meant.
To be fair, all those little accolades or fantastic, awesome, amazing, whatever, commercials for movies or games or whatever, are always taking those out of context for the most part. As long as the word technically appears in like the review or something, where like if the review says this movie was amazingly bad, they can quote amazing. And technically, it's all right.
I think they can quote amazingly.
Well, sorry.
Sorry, quite amazingly, but they got to get rid of the L and I.
Sorry, let me rephrase. The game is
trigger.
amazing, and the game is amazing, and the movie is amazing, and how bad it is.
Critics agree. The Room is amazingly. Amazingly what?
Amazingly. You guys know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
Someone actually tweeted me a video on Twitter that Well, of course they tweeted it to me on Twitter.
Twitter, yeah.
they tweeted me a video that one of my comments was used in. Apparently, one of my tweets, like one of the tweets I made on the very day that I saw it, which was when I was most positive about it. My opinions needed to cook a little before I could get much more in depth than that. It's nice to be noticed, but I had some more to say than just what I liked, so. Oh. Here we go.
Well, we could fight him, or I could do everything else. You want to take them from me? You're gonna have to reach up my ass. That's where I store everything.
Maybe we shouldn't do this.
Full cavity search, go!
Crash Bandicoot and the cavity search.
I told you we're gonna be actually fighting him later.
Oh, right. Yeah.
No, you found this sick one-hit strat.
Yeah. Speedrun hype.
If you spin here on this specific subpixel with frame-perfect inputs.
Now the normal quote-unquote ending.
Now that I'm an adult and I get this joke, I just picture Cortex on a beach with Lara Croft and her just looking really unpleased with the situation.
One of the kind of more obvious getting crap past the radar jokes in the series.
Which they don't make as subtle in the remake, I gotta say. I think it's a little detriment to it.
Yeah.
Because if you listen closer to the end, they have sound effects accompanying to whatever he says, and the one you hear when he says nice big bags, you hear two balloons inflating. And it's like, come on, guys, that's pretty obvious what the joke is.
Thanks. I wouldn't have gotten that without you.
Alright, let's get that color gem eventually. Because why they make you wait for so long for that, I don't know. And then we have Rings of Power, which I had a shockingly hard amount of time with when I was playing it. I don't know why.
Oh, Rings of Power in remake sucks.
Oh, good. It's not just me then.
Yeah, it is not just you. They changed it pretty dramatically in terms of controls.
Yeah.
Huh. I guess the plane does control differently between the Rings of Power and the...
For Rings of Power specifically, I want to stress, because...
The free range is fine.
Free range is fine. When you're shooting down blimps or the biplanes, it's absolutely fine. When you gotta go fast with that shit, the turns are about as bad as the jet ski.
Gotta go fast. Well, you also have to know what times to boost and what times not to correctly.
More so than in the original.
Yeah, because if you boost in the wrong ring, in this version, you're not making the next ring. You're just not.
Because your turns are so wide.
Yeah.
Like, you can't correct your mistake.
Yeah.
You know, with, like, good finesse, you can spin through most of them in the original game. Not all of them. Because there were sharp turns in that stage as well.
Well, that was a level.
Yes, that was.
And they make you wait that long for that.
Why does it have to be part of another level if it's just the short thing that terminates at the end of the level anyway?
Yeah.
That was a weird design choice.
It kind of just exists to be padding.
It exists so that you get beamed out up here so that you have to go back down to the relic room.
It can easily have been a alternate pathway or a death route in Hang'em High.
Really should have, but whatever.
I get the feeling it might have originally been, but then they had the idea for this secret relic warp room.
Nay!
Nay!
Are we horses now?
Well, no, it's just Ryan's initials.
Horse scratch commentaries?
Horse scratch commentaries? Yeah. Let's see how Momocom fucks that up.
I'm gonna ask them to do something just because it's tradition at this point.
No, it has to be unintentional.
True.
It's not funny if it's on purpose.
Yeah. And we have yet to have a year where they've got it right, so...
Well, they've gotten most of it right except for one thing.
That's what I mean. Like, they fuck up something.
Right.
It's not BrainScratch across all boards. I'm talking about the pamphlet, the app, and whatever we're labeled on for the panels.
Yeah. It's very strange, but it is what it is.
Can you shoot the checkpoints from a distance?
Apparently you can't, no.
Huh.
I guess that's to stop you from cheesing certain sections.
I don't think there are any places where you'd want to cheese, but okay.
Not to mention, would it really save you any time?
Not really.
I'm sure a speedrunner would find a way to use it.
Yeah, they'd save a 1/16 of a second.
Hey, that still counts towards time. So
Yeah, speedrunners do care about that 1/16 of a second.
hey, have you seen the races? Have you seen the times for Mario Brothers?
If you ever have the time to kill, actually, a fascinating video. I don't remember who made it, but the world record progression of Super Mario Sunshine. It's like an hour-long documentary concerning like how when Super Mario Sunshine speedrunning started as a thing, and then throughout the course of like a decade became as tight of a run as it is. It's really fascinating.
Oh no, the one I
And I
like
think
looking
that-
into
Hang
is
on,
just
someone did a documentary on the history of
World record
Super
progression on Super Mario Sunshine speedruns.
Super
Yes.
Mario Sunshine speedrunning history document. What the?
Yeah.
Fuck? Okay.
It's really cool. I liked it.
I, you'll
yeah,
have to
I'm
link
sure
us,
it
but
is,
I was always more interested in the Super Mario Brothers one because they're down to optimizing frames, which is not something you can easily do because you can't really. I mean, unless there's a game with lots of slowdown, you're not really going to be counting frames in real time. You just can't really do it.
Yeah, it's more of a tool-assisted thing, isn't it? But
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but the problem is that game's been so optimized and it's so short. They have to individually try to shave frames in order to try and get a better score.
yeah, it's not a game with a lot of complexity in what you can do in any given situation. So I would imagine so.
Yeah.
I'm just bowled over that someone made a documentary about the history of the speedrunning of a specific game. That's really the most. I can die a happy man now because I've experienced and seen everything this world has to offer. Well, no, almost.
He looks at a picture of a car.
A car.
Wasn't what I was getting at, but fine. Let's go with that.
Okay, fine. A nice car. Actually, what was the name of the possessed car in Stephen King?
Christine,
Stephen
I
King.
think.
Christine, I think it was Christine. Yeah, there you go.
Very weird. Backtracking against the camera.
That is actually one of the Stephen King novels that I've read. It's better than it sounds if you haven't read it yet, so...
Better or worse than the Killer Fridge movie?
There was a... What?
There was a wait.
It's one of those.
Why is
It's
that
one of those flocky D-list ones.
Oh,
Why
right.
did that sound so
like
familiar,
Sharknado. Okay.
I'm sure the Cinema Snob did it at one point. If anyone still remembers him.
Huh. Some of the schlocky horror movies ideas are interesting. I remember Sharknado was a meme for a long time.
That movie is a meme.
I've actually been kind of going back to like a video diet like it was 2008, 2009 because I've actually started watching Nostalgia Critic again.
No, really.
And I binged on some AVGN videos.
Well, no, I keep
back.
up with ABGN, but the rest of the guys I really don't anymore.
Well, I'm talking about like binge watching.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because to me, I'm now starting to use them as background noise from when I'm working on something.
Nostalgia Critic's still pretty damn good, though.
Well, he lost a lot of his audience during that whole not doing it burnout phase.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Although I will say he handled his return pretty well, just in terms of what he did with those videos. Ooh.
Yeah, just barely nicked me.
Eat the shit, Bandicoot.
I'll
Yeah,
tell
this
you-
one, this one's best thing to do is just go really fast. Don't.
Wasn't the wall.
I'll tell you what, though. The Nostalgia Critic's weakness tends to be his overabundance of skits when he really should just get down to business and talk about the movie. But he wound up turning that into a bit of a strength when he started using the skits to review new movies that he couldn't show footage of.
How do you feel about that? Because there's a part of me that wants him to just wait a bit, so he can format it like a traditional video. But at the same time, like I don't mind the the reenactments.
I find the reenactments amusing, but usually
Because he
I've
can
seen
still
the
get
movie
his point
anyway.
across. He's just not using footage.
I find the reenactments amusing, but that's partly because I'm watching his videos as someone who's already watched the movie. So seeing the skits in place of the footage actually gives me something new to look at. Okay, here we go.
Oh boy, Dynamite. Secret within a secret.
Yeah, that kind of got me. And I like, how are you supposed to know to let this one specific pterodactyl in a sea of other pterodactyls to let carry you off?
You don't.
It's called By the Guide.
Yeah.
It wasn't even the guide I found this out from, though. This was back in the day when game magazines would usually have, like, on a particular prominent game, they would have like a section of the magazine split
Go
off
tips
to
and
a-
tricks.
Yeah, to a guide. So I had those magazines. Like, I had a guide to Final Fantasy 6 and 5 in the same magazine, a guide to both games, believe it or not. Because they
You save 2. Imagine you're like 12. You save 2 weeks worth of allowance. You buy the strategy guide. It tells you to go to playonline.com.
Worst guide ever.
Yeah, but there was basically a complete guide and boss list for Final Fantasy Anthology, and that was cool. Crash Bandicoot Warped was also a game that had such a guide.
Haven't heard that
I
name in a
remember
long time.
getting
Goddamn.
secrets from that. And there was also a guide to Parasite Eve 2, which was my first introduction to cheesecake softcore porn. So of course they had the image where Aya was like had her shirt open and was in a pose, and it wasn't showing anything specific, but it was enough. I don't know why they included that in the magazine. Don't they know kids read those things? Jesus Christ! But
It's exactly like you said, cheesecake.
uh,
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Is that when she's holding the gun up?
yeah,
And,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
was
totally what you
that.
said.
And they also of course, had the obligatory screenshot of the CGI shower scene with an immature comment in the caption.
Of course. Was that Nomura? Did he design the characters for Parasite Eve?
I think.
I say he's pretty subdued, and I don't see a single belt buckle.
I know
here.
Parasite Eve
Belt buckle
1.
or zipper.
I
No
know
zippers
I know
either,
Parasite Eve 1 was somewhere in between Final Fantasy 7 and 8 in terms of technology, and the character art that went into the models had a very Final Fantasy 7 look to it.
Yeah,
in fact,
it was Nomura.
In fact, it was weird because the in-game models looked like Final Fantasy 7 CGI because they were realistically proportioned, unlike that game. But you could really tell it was Final Fantasy 7 era because all the camera angles were pulled back and overhead rather than trying to be cinematic at all.
And everybody looked like Popeye characters.
Well, no. But...
The boobs were realistic though, and I gotta tell you that was really odd.